Welcome back. Let's start with Pick n Pay's rights issue. The plan to issue 252 million new shares at R15.86 each at about a 33% discount. But maybe Sean Summers' incentive package is more interesting. 4 million shares, where have Summers pointed out only a quarter actually relates to financial performance. David, basically he gets 2 million for, I don't know, pitching. He gets 1 million for finding his successor. Only 1 million of those 4 million actually matter for performance. Nice work if you can get it, I suppose. Maybe Pick n Pay was a little more desperate than we thought.
I don't mind. I think you've summed it up in desperate, and he's really trying very hard. So I think that's not the only mathematical equation that doesn't make sense. I think what shook me a little bit was the discount of the rights issue price. The shares are trading 27. The price at around about 15. It just shows you they battle to actually place it, because you go around and you try to find the appetite for taking up the rights issue. So that's a cheap price, and I think the market just ran ahead of himself. The other thing, Simon, while we're talking, I can't understand the value being placed on Boxer. This puts Boxer at a significantly higher price than Pick n Pay itself. So I think there's a lot of things we're going to learn as this rights issue takes place, and we're going to watch very carefully over time.
Right, just on the share incentive package for Sean Summers, I mean, are we being unfair to say that of 4 million shares issued, only 1 million relate to financial performance targets, because 1 million shares relate to CEO succession, which is really important, and 2 million relate to the implementation of effective leadership and operational structures? I mean, aren't those like the harder things to do, or am I being a corporate apologist?
I don't know, man. I think I'm on the camp that says, he's basically getting the 3 million shares for showing up and having a good smile, because it actually makes no sense, because there was a team before him who actually put the rails for all of that to be in place. And which company doesn't have a succession plan? Yeah. I mean, how many times have we spoken of a succession plan at Pick n Pay? I remember this since 2001. I mean, I read it from a book that there was a succession plan at Pick n Pay. So now imagine we're still talking about a succession plan in 2024. I just think they needed words to fill the SENS announcement, and that's the best they could come up with. Otherwise, I think he came to them and said, look, your share price is tanking. I need to minimize my risk. They offered him 2 million share sets, not enough, double that, because the share price is still going to go down when you raise this 4 billion. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. That sounds a little bit more fair and realistic and truth. That's more something that reflects the truth of what's actually happening there.
I think, Giulietta, you're right, what you've said. I think that there's more issues than actual performance. He's got to get the structures right, and if he gets the structures, the controls, the whole operational efficiencies, all those operational efficiencies, I think that's more of a challenge than performance. And I think that's why he's getting it. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't care if he makes a lot of money. He's got a huge task ahead of him. And we never thought this. No one ever thought that they were in this kind of trouble. So good luck to him.
Okay.
So, and just in closing, when a company raises 4 billion, they probably need about 12 to get going. So I wonder if the 4 billion is going to be enough.
Well, there's another 8 or so coming from Boxer, but yeah.
Well, in the land of commodities, the future metals are not behaving as they should, or at least maybe the miners aren't. Witness BHP's decision to suspend nickel operations temporarily, they say, in Australia until February 2027, thanks to oversupply of the stuff. Is that a big oh dear moment for everyone who's been, pinning their hats on these future-facing metals, being nickel, copper, and lithium? I don't know. Yep. David, what do you think?
Go have a look at those prices. If you go have a look at the lithium price, if you have a look at the nickel price, they're not performing like we thought they should be, simply on the demand for batteries. And copper as well. Copper's hovering around 9.7. It should be at 11. We were getting so excited when Billiton made a bid for Anglos, and suddenly out of the woodwork, all these products of copper, buy copper, guarantee and get guaranteed, underpin and so on. And copper's 9.7, not where we wanted. It should be 11. So I think there are a few problems there that we haven't quite grasped. So,
Bright, isn't this just, I mean, we talked a moment ago at the top of the show that the QQQ went down, which is illegal. I mean, surely it's just not in a straight line, or are you completely going back to you don't do rocks?
I still stand firmly on, my initial assertion that I don't do rocks. But if you have to dig it under the ground, it's too complex for me, can't understand it. I like to stick to capital light. That makes a little bit more sense. And you grow at an accelerated pace once you see that the product is, has a big demand. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's a very complex industry, and there's always a lot of people with a lot of the stuff manipulating, the commodity prices, because when the price is down, people don't come out and sell their stuff. But once the price starts, climbing, they offload, and then you don't even make money in the process. So I don't know, man. It's too complex for me to understand.
Yeah, nickel's the one that also keeps on having a fraud around it. Moving back to Sibanye-Stillwater, latest SA company to come under attack by cyber crooks. Have a few cups of tea with the guys at Nampak, perhaps to commiserate. David, this is, I don't know. I look out there, and this is just something we're going to see more and more of. And I appreciate some IT boss at Sibanye is having a horror week, but companies should surely be better at it, or is this just the reality of the future, as Bright was saying earlier?
I think Bright summed it up beautifully. This is the new crime, and it's much easier sitting on your backside in Russia than actually getting into trying to find somebody on the street corner and trying to pop them off while no one's looking. So, and it seems to be a lot easier as well to get into it. But I think this is a big wake up. Funny enough, Buffett, when he was asked what are the threats, he always would raise us he always raised cybercrime as being a massive, massive issue for corporates. You've got to start paying your IT boss a hell of a lot more, and you've got to make sure that he's well educated and knows what's happening, particularly as we go into the AI age. So if the responsibility is on corporates.
So Bright, I got two words for you: CrowdStrike.
Well, not just CrowdStrike. You need a little bit more than that. You're going to need a whole lot of those. You're going to need Cloudflare, you're going to need CrowdStrike, you're going to need everything in the spectrum from beginning to end to make sure your firewalls are strong, operational security is strong, education of your staff on these matters, because no one can execute malware without anyone opening a document with the malware. So an employee at the company opened an email they were not supposed to open. They looked in a picture where they were not supposed to look at. They clicked on a link where they were not supposed to click. So education is very important. Or sometimes it's as easy as a phone call, right? Sometimes you get hacked because someone gets your password or something by calling you, posing as top IT. Hey, this is Bright from IT at head office. There's no Bright in IT at head office, by the way. And how do I know it's you, Bright, for sure? There needs to be protocols. There need to be words, security statements that you say. So I don't know, man. South Africa has a lot to learn when it comes to that. By just applying all of those softwares is not good enough if the staff is the weakest link.
Yeah.
I've got a very good program that I implement. I just don't answer emails.
There's always that.
Yeah.
Or phone calls.
Oh, okay. You're the two employees from hell. Well, Standard Bank has been hosting a big old jamboree in Cape Town this week and flagged, amongst others, its intention to go big in East Africa. If only the continent and SA could get its infrastructural act together.
The physical movement sometimes of goods across borders needs infrastructure, be it ports, rail, road, and you name it all. So we've got to really deal with the infrastructure problem, invest in the right kinds of infrastructure, timely, and make sure that the designs are appropriate for our purpose.
Meanwhile, TymeBank isn't short of ambition either. Think listings in New York and South Africa.
So the plan is in 4 years' time, looking at potentially a New York Stock Exchange listing with a secondary listing in Johannesburg. What we need to do before we get there is to create better scale and growing in other markets, not just single markets. So Philippines is well on track, Vietnam next, Indonesia next. So in 4 years' time, we'll at least be in 4 very strong, large markets before we plan a listing.
Yeah, so this goes back to, and we had this discussion, Giulietta, when you were away, bank accounts. And it turns out that us oldies only have one. The youngins like Bright have plenty. But Bright, I mean, Time Bank, 10 million customers almost in 5 years. That is huge.
It's huge. It's incredible. And I think Time Bank wants to become a challenger bank. So think Wise, what used to be called TransferWise, think Monzo, think Revolut, think new holdings in South America, and obviously think, I don't know, there's other German versions like the bank that Peter Thiel funded. I can't remember the name of the bank, but they want to basically expand and compete in the Philippines using the same business model that worked here in South Africa to get the initial, 10 million odd users of the bank. But the problem here now becomes, you need to start offering all of these clients services, start lending to them. And obviously this is where you come back to your shareholders and say, hey, look, we have this new line of services that we're trying to offer. We need to do a capital raise. So there's going to be a bit of that. So I expect some of that to happen here. But I mean, like I said, I did mention when I started this that there are other challenger banks there, which, by size are much larger. So competition is going to be hard as soon as they leave our shores here. But Philippines, maybe it's a good start, but where to from the Philippines?
Yeah, well, Vietnam is one of them as well. And these are big markets, but I take your point. They're not moving into sort of uncharted
Malaysia
territory.
Also, there's potential there, Thailand, but there are other challenger banks, local banks there doing something similar, digital banks.
Yeah.
I was in Thailand, I've seen some of that going on there. So it's going to be quite interesting. And obviously, in places like, Southeast Asia, you're competing with the equivalent of M-Pesa, a payments, app, than an actual bank. So it's going to be tough convincing these people that they need this bank.
And very tough trying to get more capital from your parent, African Rainbow Capital.
But finally, if you thought a quick shotgun wedding at the local registry office was a sensible thing to do, then best you switch off now before we tell you the nuptials of India's richest man's son and his gazillion bride are probably sitting in a cost of $600 million by now after 5 months of pre-wedding celebration. That will get going in earnest today for the next 3 days and bring Mumbai to a standstill. With the blessing, we may add, of its leaders and guests ranging from Mark Zuckerberg, UK Prime Ministers Boris Johnson, Tony Blair, FIFA President Gianni Infantino, boxer Mike Tyson, and of course the Kardashians. Talk about soft power. 600 billion. They haven't even had the wedding. Sorry, million. They haven't even had the wedding yet.
Have you been following this?
Do you know how you're poor? You didn't get invited to this wedding.
Did not get invited to this wedding.
We are not part of the global elite.
No.
Oh, well.
So we're going to watch football rather, and rugby.
And rugby. And that's where we shall leave it. David Bright, thanks very much for joining us. To the rest of you, have a good evening and a great weekend.